Hey guys, so this is a video that's been asked for a long time. I'm redoing my top 3 of each faction video. This is as of 2019, November 17th. The newest hero out is Saizou. Um, I want to start off by saying that due to Skull, she's kind of redefining the meta a little bit because of her revive. So I will have a couple of separate lists based on whether or not you have her. Another thing to say is that this is kind of based for end game rankings. Some of these heroes are better at 6-star plus than they are at 5 stars. For example, Mars, Shudmel, Freya, Luna, stuff like that. So don't take this as a fixed list of who is absolutely better because there are always caveats and all of that. So, with that being said, we're going to start with Alliance. So here is my list for Alliance. Already here is one where Skuld is a big factor. So this one is a little bit easier. Skuld only matters later on. So number one, obviously Valkyrie, far and away the best Alliance. She's got crazy damage. She heals every time someone dies. She's a little bit slow, and she doesn't have any crowd control, but at 10 stars, her skill reduces enemies' attack by 20% and ridiculous. She is straight up ridiculous. Best gear for her is she doesn't really need speed. She doesn't really need Tears of the Goddess. If you have extra, you can put one on her, but she doesn't necessarily need it. So regular old gospel song, which is the alliance bound artifact that increases skill damage, and a regular attack rune, not defense break, not accuracy or anything, just regular attack rune, and that makes her amazing. She can and will single-handedly change your progress in pretty much all modes. Number two, so let's start with without Skuld first. I'll go into my justification for that in a bit. Number two, I put it Tesla without Skuld. The reason for that is because he has a 4-man 50% stun skill, and that's incredibly high. So definitely something to think about. Because the new meta is moving towards clerics, massive healing, Skuld with crowd control, cleansing, and all of that, stun turns out to be the new counter to that. It used to be everybody was focused on silence with Shoot Mel, but now you'd rather have stun. Tesla is not really meant to be a damage dealer. He's more of like controlling the other people, so you're really using him for that. Best rune is going to be speed. Best artifact most likely is also speed, just to have him be as fast as possible. You could Tears of the Goddess him, but it's not a very good idea because he's really slow, as you can see here. So yeah, speed on him. Third place, oops, that's the 6-star one, is Saizou. Saizou is the new character. We've seen a few examples of him at 10-star, and people have used him a lot in peaks, so we've kind of gotten a view of what he can do. What you'll notice with him is that he very reliably is going to put out very large damage numbers. Very reliably. His regular attack hits 3 people with poison and extra damage with this attack spell, and his skill just does bonkers damage, 240%. Additionally, if he hits someone with his skill, they do not revive it on the same turn that it's fired. That's not true. Some people don't revive. Like Mars doesn't revive. Skuld, it counters Skuld's revive, but it does not seem to counter Mars, and I think it doesn't counter Monkey King or something like that. It's a little bit unreliable because of the wording, because some people revives, they're not counted as healing, and some are. So he can kill some people with skill, and they will not revive. So he is kind of a direct asset to fight Skuld, who is becoming more and more prevalent now. The problem with him is he's very slow. As you can see here, 1224, he's going to be slower than pretty much everybody. He's a little bit squishy because he's an assassin, so, you know, he takes a lot of damage. And his plus is that when he's below 50%, he removes all control effects on himself, which possibly lets him fire his skill on turn 2 after everybody fires, sometimes not, unknown. So that's why he really needs Skuld's Revive paired with him. If he's paired with Skuld and he's guaranteed to come back and fire his skill, hopefully more than once, you're probably going to start killing people very quickly with him. So that's why without Skuld, I rate him below Tesla, but with Skuld, I rate him above, just because he's very slow and squishy and he needs that to come back. Best artifacts for him, honestly, I'm not sure. I would guess Defense Break Rune and probably Speed Artifact, maybe. I really couldn't tell you for sure. He does so much damage without good gear that you may want to focus on speed and HP for him, but probably as far as he's going, since he's still relatively new, I'd say there's no best setup for him just yet. Probably you just want to maximize his damage with Defense Break Rune and probably Speed Artifact, or maybe Gospel Song, just like Valkyrie. Yeah, something like that. Really, we won't know until more people have him, but gosh, if you see him in action, his damage is ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. All right, that being said, now let's go on to Horde. Now, Horde, let me start by addressing the elephant in the room. Phoenix got nerfed. What does this mean for Phoenix? Phoenix basically lost the ability to stun everybody when he dies. His attack doesn't stack the burn damage, I believe. Oh, right here, his regular attack doesn't stack the attack percentage reduction. And also he lost his immunity to burn, which means that Phoenix versus Phoenix starts to end a little bit quicker because Phoenix burns Phoenix and then he starts to die from burn damage. What does this mean for Phoenix? It means that as a tank, he's no longer super strong. It means that he cannot single-handedly take on a whole party of 6 if their people are average damage dealing. But still, since he kept everything else, he kept giving 100 energy, he kept doing burn damage to everybody and having his entire team do 30% extra damage to burn targets, and he kept reviving at all. So still, he is single-handedly the best hero in the game. Like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's still up there. Now, if you intend to use Phoenix as a tank still, because Phoenix still is a very good tank, unfortunately, due to all of the nerfs, he no longer survives as long as he did. So you may want to pair him with a damage reduction artifact such as Scorching Sun, Gift of Creation, Bone Grips, if you're lucky enough to have those. One of those. If he's still dying too fast, maybe try a Dodge Rune. Both of those combined means Phoenix really should still live to the end as usual and, you know, help the rest of your team go crazy in the meantime. I personally still run mine with a speed rune because speed is just always critical for clerics, and it seems to be doing okay, so I think at least at 10 stars that's probably a good place for him to be, is a speed rune and a damage reduction artifact. Yeah, Phoenix still hands down the best hero in the game. Number 2 is Medusa. Medusa, I mean, she's Medusa. She's not that fast, but she has a 3-person regular attack, and every single tank she attacks has a 20% chance to petrify, so she can petrify up to 3 people on every turn, plus her skill hits all 6 people, and that also has the same 20% chance to petrify. So really, she's going to petrify someone pretty much every turn. Paired with Freya, she tends to do a lot of extra damage. The downside of that is that you need to make sure that she is slower than Freya, which is, easy to do because by nature she is, but if your Medusa is a higher star than Freya, then maybe not so easy. So reliably still strong, very strong character. It's just that Phoenix outclassed her so much that Medusa kind of falls by the wayside in as a result. Number 3. Now, the reason that you'll see that I have her so far below is because really, once you go beyond Medusa, the rest of Horde, all of these people, they're just not that useful. They have no place in endgame. They don't really serve a purpose for later game like PvP or even PvE. Scarlet is very squishy. She dies very quickly, but you know, she does have her regular poison stuff. Let me, before I go on, let me go back to Medusa one sec. Best gear for Medusa is going to be speed and speed rune and either Star Shards Tears of the Goddess or probably also speed artifact, so Gun of the Disaster or any regular boots. Okay, back to Scarlet. So Scarlet, so at lower stars, you like to put Scarlet in the front and have her die early because when she dies, she poisons everybody. Is that here? When she dies, she guarantees poisons everybody for 3 rounds, which is very good early on. But once you start getting to the 10-star level, when everybody starts bringing out the big guns and healing and all of that, Scarlet just doesn't keep up. The only saving grace is that Skuld's control cleansing does not include poison. So even if she revives people, poison stays on them. But still, Scarlet just does not do enough damage and doesn't have the longevity to work with to live in end game. Paired with Skuld, it's possible that she could do some damage, but actually, no, not really, because she won't die. She'll revive, and you won't get this poison to go off twice. So really, Scarlet I'm sorry, Scarlet, she's great early on, but she just really falls off the wayside in end game. So try not to focus too hard on making her. The saving grace is that Medusa is relatively easy to get, being on the advanced wheel and being a lower tier hero in event rewards. So at bare minimum, you probably should be able to make a Medusa. Oh well. Moving on is Elf. So this is kind of a... Everybody always asks Dro versus Luna, Dro versus Luna. Dro objectively is much, much better. She does way more damage, and her Cleric Silence, which unfortunately is only at 10 stars, is huge. And her pure healing is among the highest in the game. I think she may lose only to like Skuld or maybe Valkyrie in short matches, but in longer matches, Dro is unparalleled. Now, I rate her higher than Luna, but that really only matters at 10 stars. Before 10 stars, you probably want to use Luna, but at 10, hands down, go with Dro. Like I said, she's what is that? She's faster than Shoot Melt, so I think she's the second fastest unit in the game. So if you can Tears of the Goddess her, you can control most clerics. And yeah, just crazy healing, and she does very, very respectable damage. Best gear for her would probably be a speed rune, and either a Tears of the Goddess if you've got it, Star Shards if you don't, or probably just Queen's Crown for speed. Again, that's only at 10 stars. If you've got her below that, you can still put a speed rune on her, but probably you don't need the speed artifact quite so much. You probably could just give her a regular old attack, because remember that cleric's healing is based purely on their attack stat, so you want to raise that as high as possible. Not true attack, not defense break, only pure attack stat affects healing. So Dro, still absolutely top tier elf and very critical cleric for end game. So number 2 then is Luna. Luna is actually quite easy to get because she's in the Soul Shop and on the advanced wheels, so most people should have access to Luna, at least relatively easier than Dro. Um, so the thing about Luna is she's terrible at 5 stars. At 5 stars, her skill only has 15% chance to silence, and so just it's not reliable and really not worth using. So Luna will start to take off at 6 stars plus. At 10 stars, you'll see that she gains this damage reduction by 80%. Now, you may think that this allows you to use her as a tank with Star Shards or Tears of the Goddess, but don't do that. Not in PvP. If she gets controlled, she'll die. If they land any sort of silence, petrify, anything on her, she dies. So with this, then, you could change it and use her as a tank in PvE, which is Den, Planet Trial, and Story Mode. So she does very good in there because there's not as many teams that have any sort of control. So she's very amazing for PvE for that. She does do quite good damage, and this 50% silence is, it's Luna. She's pretty fast and she has great silence, so well worth using. Her best rune is speed, best artifact is also speed, or Tears of the Goddess Star Shards, whichever. General rule is anybody that has any sort of silence, petrify, freeze, stun, they probably want Star Shards for the most part, and Luna is no exception. But if you can't get it, put on speed. So here, third place, this is a little bit of a toss-up between Centaur and Vegvasir. I choose Centaur because, honestly, you can double use him for Friends Boss. He's one of the best heroes in the game for Friends Boss. But honestly, if at this point, it doesn't matter what you're using. If you need a tank, you can use Vegvasir. He's amazing. But if you're at a point where you've got someone else as a tank, I would rather have Centaur. Centaur's damage is really good. He does extra damage to poison people, so he synergizes very well if you happen to have like Medusa. Or if you're stuck using any lower tier characters early on, like Scarlet, Ripper, even like Aiden or something like that. He does very well with any of those. His damage output is very high because his skill hits 4 people and lands a lot of poison. So definitely worth considering for damage alone. But remember that once you pass Luna, the bar falls pretty low, and Centaur just doesn't do that well in end game. Something to consider. He's still very strong, just falls off a little bit because he can't reliably do damage. Best gear for him would be Defense Break Rune and probably just any damage artifact. I don't think it matters that much. Because you would use him in more specific cases, he probably does better with some sort of a class damage artifact. So like if you use him against a mage friends boss, you just put a general extra damage to mage artifact on him and let him roll with that. I don't think he does anything amazing without, like, I guess by default you can put a damage artifact like a Dragon Blood on him or something like that. Doesn't seem to matter too much. So next we'll move on to Undead. So this is another one that's very much up for discussion. First of all, Shudmel. Shudmel is first and foremost number 1. She's the third fastest unit in the game. Her regular attack silences 4 people at 50%. She does great healing with her skill. And this really sucks. This one you don't want. But yeah, she has great control, great healing, and she's fast. So always use Shudmel if you have any option to use her. even on a 10-star team, you would rather have a 9-star Shude Mel than a 10-star of any of the other people I have listed. She's well worth it. Best gear for her then is double speed, is just speed rune, speed artifact, and that's it. Nothing else, no other options. You don't want Tears of the Goddess on her because you would rather have her use her regular attack. People will say that she can function with a damage artifact, and this is true if you are not fighting a Drow. If she uses a damage artifact like Soul Torrent, she will be slower than Drow, and Drow with Tears of the Goddess will stun her. If she's not, if you use a speed artifact, you are guaranteed to be faster than Drow every single time, and you can silence Drow before she fires her skill. So definitely, for laziness and for more general purpose, speed is better. But if you're going to use her for PvE, Den, Planet, where the enemies are slow, you can go ahead and use an attack artifact, and that will be just fine. So, yeah, Shude Mel guaranteed far and away number 1. The constant debate after that is, who is in second place? Who's the second best? And the answer is, really, of all of these, none of them stand out. And so because of this, Undead really is kind of the worst faction for late game, because Shude Mel is by far the best, but even she falls off a little bit at end game. She's not as useful in the super endgame meta, and everybody else is even less useful. So now what do you do? Anyway, so after that, I have them ranked Hester, Aiden, Reaper, Dettlaff. I like Hester because at least her skill has Petrify on it, which none of the other people do. But honestly, at that point, they're all going to perform about the same. Reaper, Aiden, and Dettlaff both have the potential to do very good damage. Dettlaff is great versus Friends boss, as is Aiden. Aiden has some decent survivability with his self-healing. Reaper's got great warrior silence plus death damage. And Hester's got team synergy with... she ups everybody's skill damage. So really, they're all decent. But if you're looking for what team do I take to 10 stars and stay there, none of these 4 people are really going to be on that team. It's got to be Shude Mel or you are subpar. There's just no ands about it. And that's just for a Unity team. The highest level meta team right now at this time has no Shude Mel. So unfortunately, Undead really has the shortest end of the stick. But for early level players, just starting to put together a team, all of these are good. Any of the 5 people I have listed are very good. Best gear for them, let me see. Hester would want a speed rune and likely a speed artifact or star shards, just to try and get that Petrify off as fast as possible. She is a cleric, so she's still pretty fast, but she's squishy and she dies quickly. Reaper would want defense break artifact and some sort of a damage rune. It doesn't matter, or defense break rune and some sort of a damage artifact. It doesn't really matter because he's not gonna be faster than anybody, and he's not gonna reliably even get his skill off. So just focus on damage. Same thing for Aiden and for Dettlaff is defense break rune and some sort of a damage artifact. None of them do enough to where they need speed or to where they need any sort of special artifact to function. So really, Undead is bad. But still, I recommend pulling Miracle Eyes and Undead early on for people that are still trying to assemble their 5 stars. All right, next is going to be Heaven. Heaven is extremely broken right now. Heaven has some of the best heroes in the game at a very high rate. Skuld has single-handedly defined the new meta because of her revive, because her skill adds 30% true damage to the whole team, because of her ability to remove control on the whole team. She has become indispensable. However, Skuld does not do that well in doing big damage to weaker teams than you. She specializes in teams that are the same or higher strength. So she's not super great for curb stomping like weak people, but she's good enough for everything else. That's really her only downside. The thing about Skuld is because she has this chance to remove controls upon your team, you would like her to be faster than your team, but slower than their team, because you want them to land their silence, stun, whatever, and then you want her to fire her skill and then clear all of that from your team so that your team can either fire the same turn or at the beginning of next turn. So because of that, Skuld she does not want speed. She's fast, but she does not want to maximize that speed. So I have an attack rune, regular attack, because again, her healing is based on that, and a Tears of the Goddess on her to hopefully go after their Luna, their Sudmel, their Mars. After that, she will fire after those, clear my team, and let my team fire upon the other team. That turns out to be one of the best setups for her. And the thing about Skuld is she shines the most when you have the correct team for her, which is you have at least one damage dealer who is very high damage but very squishy, like Saizou, as I mentioned earlier, or Chesia, or Bale, as I'll get to in a bit. So Skuld definitely single-handedly the best undead, or not undead, sorry, heaven. Very, very strong. Very, very strong. And also very hard to get. Number 2, this is going to come with a little bit of a caveat. Mars at end game 10-star level, Mars is way better than Lindbergh. Before that, at 9 stars or below, Lindbergh is better because his stun is 100% and all of that. And Mars doesn't even have his stun at 9 stars. Mars does not have any stun on his skill. But once he hits 10 stars, watch out. 4 people, 60% stun. For this reason, some of the best some of the best teams out there have 2 Mars with Tears of the Goddess. Oh god, they'll lock you down so hard. So Mars, amazing stun. Amazing stun. On top of that, amazing damage, because every time he attacks, he increases his skill damage and his true damage. And not only that, he has this where when he dies, he revives with a free extra skill plus damage reduction. So not only does he live a long time, he gets free energy, and he does boatloads of damage if not held in check. So really, Mars way up there. So with that in mind, his best equipment is Speed Rune, Tears of the Goddess. If you don't have Tears of the Goddess, try Gift of Creation for the true damage, or Holy Light Justice for the skill damage, because Mars does a lot of damage. So then behind Mars is going to be Lindbergh. Now, Lindbergh is amazing. His skill is guaranteed stun on 2 people in the backline, extra damage if they're weak, and if he kills someone, he gets energy to fire his skill again. The downside, he has no hit rate, so he does very, very poorly against teams that have stacked dodge. For this reason alone, he finds out that he doesn't do that well in end game. Also, even though he has such high HP and such high base power, he's actually quite squishy. He dies very quickly. So paired with Skuld, he can do pretty good, but still, the hit rate just kills him. If you use a hit rate artifact, you lose the potential for so much damage and control that it's almost kind of not worth the trade-off. So we used to think that the best the best meta team had a Mars and a Lindbergh in it. It turns out that you do much better with 2 Marses. So sorry, Lindbergh, you're really good, but falls short. Best gear for him, quite honestly, I couldn't tell you. I believe he needs a hit rate rune and probably either Holy Light Justice or some sort of a damage artifact like Holy Light. Yeah, basically Holy Light Justice for damage. But he needs hit rate in some form, and remember that you're sacrificing a lot to give him that hit rate. And even with it, he's going to miss a lot because, again, no guild tech hit rate for assassins versus clerics or warriors or wanderers that have dodge natively, and he can't stop that. So he really, really suffers for that. He's still very, very strong, especially in PvE where enemies don't have all that dodge, and you'll see him stun people like crazy. But end game falls off. Really, really, really falls off. Alright, so we'll go to the final class right now, which is Hell. This is one where Skuld again plays a humongous factor. So let me start with without Skuld. In that case, this is a very different listing. Freya, number 1, far and away. She does hit the entire team. She has a chance to petrify the whole team with her skill. Her regular attack also has a high chance to petrify. And she also, with her skill, can drain energy from people. And every time she lands a petrify, her attack goes up, meaning she gets stronger. So Freya is really a critical team member for PvE. For PvP, she's a bit of a crapshoot. 30% is not super high. Sometimes she'll go crazy, stun the whole team, and win the battle for you single-handedly. And sometimes she'll stun nobody and be pretty much the reason why you lose. So she's a very good character in general, but she's got a lot of gambling with her. Still definitely worth using. Bear in mind she is terrible at 5 stars because her skill only hits 4 people with like a 20% chance to petrify. She doesn't hit the entire team with her skill until 6 stars and on. So really, Freya has the potential to do some amazing damage out there. Still definitely number 1 without Skuld. Best gear for her, speed rune, speed artifact. You can use Star Shards, Tears of the Goddess on her if you have them. Otherwise, just go speed. Freya is so fast that if you go speed, she'll be faster than most people and still be able to fire her skill before them on round 2. Something to think about. Especially in Den Planet Trial, she's so much faster that you can do speed and be faster without needing to waste a Tears of the Goddess on her. Or you can do speed and damage. You got to play around with it and see just where she is relative to the speed of the enemy team. So this probably is going to be a controversial choice. I choose Monkey King as number 2 without Skuld. His tanking is still crazy high. His reflect damage is not this one. His reflect damage is like guaranteed 86% to reflect a humongous amount of damage back. You'll find a lot of people that fire their skills will take a huge load of damage back from him, and he will reliably be very high on your damage charts just by being tank. And he revives, so his HP ends up being twice what it is. So really, for people without Skuld, Monkey King is a very, very reliable tank. It's going to be very hard for non-top tier teams to get through him because they will kill themselves just hitting him. For that reason, his best gear then is a defense break rune and dragon blood or some sort of true damage artifact on him just to maximize his reflect damage and do as much back as he can. Definitely a very, very solid tank and a very reliable damage dealer. Number 3, I have Chesia here. I'm not completely convinced it should be Chesia, but she must have an energy artifact. She absolutely needs it. She does not gain energy the regular way. She only gains it when anybody fires their skills. So if you don't have an energy artifact on her, she may not fire her skill on turn 2 like everybody else. So you definitely need that. Plus, every time she fires her skill damage gets much, much higher. So if she can fire her skill twice, or if you're lucky even more times, you will see her at the top of your damage charts. The downside is that she's very squishy. So that's why she's very Scold reliant. So really, I would not recommend using her unless you have Scold. But if you don't have Freya or Monkey King and you have an energy artifact to spare and you have Chesia, you can go ahead and use her. And sometimes she's going to do crazy damage. Most of the time she won't. Something to think about. She has the potential to go nuts if she stays alive. Best gear for her is going to be the same defense break rune and some sort of attack artifact. But hopefully star shards. Not Tears of the Goddess, star shards, because that one ups skill damage and that's where all her damage lies. So I rate Chesia there without Scold, but with Scold, now someone else becomes number one, and that is Bale. Now, we didn't think Bale was going to be crazy when he came out, and honestly, without Scold, he's terrible. He's too slow, he's too squishy. His requirement for doing damage, which is that somebody dies and that gives him free energy to fire again, that's very iffy, that he's going to be able to live when somebody else dies because, again, very squishy. But throw Scold in there, and the moment that somebody on the enemy team dies, Bale starts to snowball. His damage, he's going to start firing his skill every turn. Like every time someone dies, he's just going to fire his skill again. When someone dies, he does extra damage on everybody. And if you've ever seen him in peaks, you've seen basically what he has the potential to do. He can just go nuts on you. But he needs Scold, because otherwise he's going to die before any of that happens. So the reason that Bale and Chesia both are very similar in that respect is that they both need to stay alive to fire their skills, and Scold helps that happen. It's been tested. Bale reliably does better in PvP than Chesia, just because he has more chance to blow up and do more damage. But I believe Chesia may be better for PvE, so Den Planet Trial, where it's not as guaranteed that you're going to kill people by round 2. Chesia will always do the same amount of damage, but Bale is going to not do any extra damage until people die. And so these two, Bale and Chesia, because they have the potential to just explode, that's why they're way up there with Scold. And then after that, I put Freya just because she's still the best of what's left. Zexanoth did get a buff, and didn't help him that much. So Bale, best artifact, really, he has a lot of options. You can put crit damage on him, you can put crit rate on him, you can put regular damage on him. It really doesn't seem to matter largely, because adding HP doesn't really help him stay alive. Adding speed doesn't matter because he's so slow. And so, yeah, probably just any form of damage on him is going to do just fine. And then rune or artifact, damage, Ragnarok, Dragon Blood, something like that. Or Eternal Curse, which I believe is the Hell damage artifact. I could be wrong. Hold on. Eternal Curse. Yeah, Eternal Curse would also be good for him. So, yeah, Bale number 1 with Scold. So, this is my new top 3. Bear in mind that a lot of this is my opinion. I have seen what people have done with these, and there may be some situations where a hero will do better, but for the most part, these are going to be power rankings, like how well people do relative to each other. I hope that you find this helpful, and yeah, use this to make your teams. Remember that this is aimed towards 10-star players, and if you're still at the 5 to 6-star level, you may need to find a slightly different listing for that, because not everybody works the same at 5 stars as they do at 10. Yeah, that should be all. Hope you enjoyed this, and see you next time.